The call came just as I was reviewing the Q3 financials, sitting at my desk on the 35th floor, the city lights starting to twinkle far below. My brother Jacob. My thumb hovered over the answer button for a second, a familiar knot tightening in my stomach. 15 years. 15 years of navigating his carefully constructed world where success was measured by corner offices and predictable paychecks, a world where my chosen path was perpetually viewed as a charming, if pathetic, hobby. Hey, Scarlett. Long time no hear. Jacob's voice was immediately too bright, too cheerful. A sure sign he had something to lord over me. Hey, Jacob. Everything all right? I leaned back in my chair, pushing the multi-million-dollar reports aside. The irony wasn't lost on me. Fantastic, actually. The engagement party details are finalized. You're still coming, right? Wouldn't miss it, I lied smoothly. Attending was going to be an exercise in emotional endurance, a familiar test I'd faced at every family gathering for over a decade. Great. Daniel's family is really looking forward to meeting everyone. Especially after, well, there it was. The pivot. He was referring to the business article from last week, a minor hiccup with one of Solara Tech's smaller product lines spun by a click-hungry blog into signs of trouble at innovative startup. It was noise, easily manageable, but Jacob had latched onto it like a life raft in his ocean of conventionalism. You mean the blog post? I kept my tone neutral. He chuckled, a dry, condescending sound. Yeah, that. Tough break, Scar. Losing funding, or whatever happened there. Must be stressful, with bills and everything. Not everyone has the luxury of dabbling, I guess. My fingers tightened around my pen. Dabbling. That was his favorite word for my life's work. It's a bit more complex than that, Jacob. Right. Tech talk. Anyway, just wanted to make sure you're prepared for the party. It's pretty high profile. Daniel's associates are serious players. Bankers, lawyers, real business people. Probably not your usual crowd. Might want to, dress appropriately. Something clean. I glanced down at my outfit, a custom-tailored suit that cost more than his car. I'll manage, Jacob. Don't worry about me. Okay, just looking out for you, sis. Wouldn't want you to feel too out of place. Poor Thomas can't even keep a job, right? He laughed again, referencing an old family joke about a distant cousin who struggled professionally. It was a direct hit, comparing my struggles to a known family failure. Right, I said, my voice flat. Well, congratulations again, Jacob. To you and Daniel. Thanks, Scar. See you there. Try not to stress too much about the job stuff before then. He hung up, leaving me in the quiet hum of my corner office, the city lights indifferent below. Poor Thomas. I wasn't Thomas, and I wasn't poor or unemployed. I was Scarlett Ainsworth, CEO of Solara Tech, a company valued at $500 million and growing. But to my family, I was still the bright but misguided girl playing on her laptop. The secrecy started out as a shield, a way to build something without the weight of their expectations or, worse, their unsolicited help. Every time Jacob mocked my business plans in college, every time my father Richard gently steered me towards safer career paths, every time my mother Eleanor worried publicly about my future while praising Jacob's stable job, the walls went up a little higher. It was easier to let them believe I was flailing than to constantly fight for their understanding or, heaven forbid, deal with the inevitable requests for favors once they knew. No pressure, no expectations, became my mantra. What I didn't anticipate was the emotional cost of living two parallel lives. He said what? Lily's eyes widened over her large coffee cup. We were in our usual corner booth at the diner near her apartment, a place far removed from the polished world of my office or the upcoming party venue. Called me poor Thomas. Compared me to a distant cousin everyone knows struggled to hold down a job, I sighed, stirring my coffee. And told me to dress appropriately, because Daniel's family are real business people. Lily shook her head. After all this time, they still just refuse to see it? It's willful blindness partly. And partly my own doing, I guess, I admitted. I built the wall. I just didn't realize it would become a fortress I was trapped inside too. Trapped? Scarlett, you run a multi-million-dollar company. You're not trapped. Financially, no. Emotionally? A little, I confessed. Having to constantly deflect, lie by omission, listen to their concerns and advice, it's exhausting, Lil. Especially when you know they'd drop all the pity the second they knew the truth, probably replaced by demands. So why go? Lily asked, taking a sip of her coffee. Just send a gift. Jacob's my brother. For all the nonsense, there's still something there. Family obligation? Maybe I'm just curious to see their faces when the shoe inevitably drops. I hadn't planned on a grand reveal. I hadn't planned on any reveal. But Jacob's call had shifted something. Maybe it was time. Samantha, was equally amused and annoyed when I told her about Jacob's call later that week. Samantha had been with me since Solara Tech was just an idea scribbled on a whiteboard. She knew the sacrifices, the near failures, the relentless work. Poor Thomas? Seriously. Samantha snorted, adjusting her glasses. Does he even know what Solara means? Probably thinks it's a new brand of sunblock. Probably, I chuckled, the mental image providing a brief moment of levity. Anyway, I'm going. And I've decided I'm not going to work quite as hard to hide things this time. If something happens, it happens. Samantha raised an eyebrow. Oh? Planning a dramatic entrance. Not planning exactly, but not running for cover either. It's time they saw more than just the struggling sister. The day of the party arrived. I spent the morning at the office, putting out a small but actual fire related to a server issue, a reminder of the very real, complex world Jacob dismissed as my dabbling. Switching from crisis management mode to preparing for a family party felt surreal. Getting ready was a deliberate process. I chose a dress, a deep emerald silk, simple cut, but the fabric flowed like liquid wealth. The kind of dress that didn't scream expensive, but whispered it in a language only certain people understood. My only jewelry was a vintage watch, a family heirloom, a connection to the past that felt ironic today. As I styled my hair, I looked at my reflection. 36 years old. Years of late nights, relentless work, calculated risks, and carefully maintained facades. I looked confident, tired, and ready. The venue was as extravagant as expected, a rooftop ballroom downtown with panoramic city views, glittering just like the chessboard I sometimes imagined it to be from my own office window. Jacob was near the entrance, looking resplendent in a tuxedo, beaming. Beside him stood Daniel, handsome and composed. As I approached, Jacob's smile widened, though there was a familiar glint of appraisal in his eyes. "Scarlett, you made it. And look at you. You scrubbed up all right," he said, loud enough for nearby guests to hear, a backhanded compliment designed to subtly put me in my place. "Congratulations, Jacob." "You too, Daniel," I said, extending my hand to his fiancé. Daniel's handshake was firm. He met my eyes, and for a fleeting second, there was something there, recognition perhaps? Or just politeness. I couldn't be sure. "Thank you, Scarlett. Jacob's told me a lot about you." "Oh." I raised an eyebrow, fighting the urge to ask what he'd told him. Before either of them could elaborate, Aunt Carol bustled over, embracing me tightly. "Scarlett, dear, it's so good to see you. We were just saying how brave you are, pursuing your creative ventures. Still doing that, are we?" She patted my arm patronizingly. "Well, if things ever get too tight, you know my neighbor Ethel is looking for a receptionist down at the dental office. Nice, stable job." "That's very kind, Aunt Carol. I'll keep it in mind," I said, smiling politely, my jaw aching slightly from the effort. Jacob chuckled. "Yeah, Aunt Carol always looks out for the less conventionally employed in the family." He steered me slightly towards a group of people nearby. "Scarlett, these are some of Daniel's colleagues. Mr. Davison, this is my sister, Scarlett. She's in the tech space, doing things." Mr. Davison, a distinguished older gentleman with sharp eyes, extended a hand. "Ms. Ainsworth." "Pleasure." As our hands met, his eyes seemed to linger for a moment, a flicker of something unreadable. He knew my name. Was it just politeness or something more? The party unfolded as expected. Jacob was the star, Daniel the charming partner. My parents, Richard and Eleanor, were navigating the room, beaming with pride over Jacob's match. Mom caught my eye and gave me a small, worried smile, mouthing, "Are you okay?" I gave her a reassuring nod, the lie heavy on my conscience. Later, Jacob was holding court near a group of Daniel's most influential business associates, including Mr. Davison, who seemed to be listening politely. Champagne flutes in hand, Jacob was regaling them with anecdotes, steering the conversation towards family. My parents were always so proud of my drive, my focus, Jacob was saying, puffing out his chest slightly. Daniel here is the same. Real go-getters. Takes after our father's side, I suppose. Unlike some of us. He paused, looking over at me with a smirk that was meant to look affectionate but landed as pure condescension. My sister Scarlett, for instance. Bright girl, very creative. But bless her heart, just can't seem to find her footing in the real world. Keeps trying her hand at these startup-y things. Had a bit of a setback recently, actually. Quite the worrying phase. He lowered his voice slightly, but it was still audible to the group and me. Honestly, we worry about her. Jumps from one thing to the next. Doesn't seem to grasp the value of stability. Pretty much unemployable in any serious firm, I'd say. Nice girl, though. He finished with a sympathetic sigh, shaking his head performatively, clearly soliciting pity and reinforcing his own superior position. I felt a wave of heat rise, the years of dismissal and ridicule cresting. My first instinct was to retreat, find a quiet corner, breathe. But then I saw Daniel. He was standing slightly behind Jacob, and as Jacob delivered his final, cruel line, Daniel's smile vanished. His eyes darted to mine, a look of horror and urgency flashing across his face. He knew I'd heard. And in that moment, I saw him grapple with something internally. Daniel stepped forward slightly, a hand subtly reaching for Jacob's arm. Jacob, maybe we don't need to. He started, his voice low, a clear attempt to de-escalate. But Jacob, caught up in his own performance, paid him no mind. No, it's just the reality, Daniel. Not everyone is cut out for it. Some people are just. Actually, Jacob, Daniel interrupted, his voice firmer this time, cutting across his fiancé's words. He looked from Jacob to me, a tension in his posture. He took a breath, seemingly making a decision in that instant. Scarlett's work is far from instability. In fact, her company, Solara Tech, just finalized their Series C funding last week. He paused, looking directly at Mr. Davison and the others in the group, his voice gaining strength as he shared information he clearly knew held weight. With the valuation from that round, Solara Tech is now valued at over $500 million. Scarlett isn't just trying things out, Jacob. She's the founder and CEO. She built that empire from the ground up. The silence that followed was instantaneous and deafening. It wasn't just a pause, it was a complete cessation of sound. Champagne flutes hung in midair, conversations died on lips. All eyes snapped from Daniel to me. Jacob's face went from smug confidence to utter, pale disbelief in milliseconds. His mouth opened and closed, no sound coming out. My parents across the room froze, Mom's hand flying to her chest. Aunt Carol's jaw dropped, her pitying smile evaporating. Mr. Davison, whose eyes had widened considerably at Daniel's words, slowly lowered his glass. He looked at me with a mixture of astonishment and dawning respect. Solara Tech, he murmured, more to himself than anyone else. Valued at that? Ms. Ainsworth. I knew the name was familiar. We follow Solara's progress closely. Remarkable work. I felt a wave of power wash over the initial shock. This was it. The wall was down. I stood tall, met Jacob's stunned gaze, then glanced around at the frozen faces. Yes, Daniel is correct, I said, my voice calm and clear, carrying across the silent space. I am Scarlett Ainsworth, and I am the founder and CEO of Solara Tech. We closed our Series C last week, and the valuation is indeed north of $500 million. The silence shattered into a cacophony of whispers, gasps, and murmurs. $500 million? Solara Tech? That's Solara Tech. Jacob's sister? Jacob looked like he might faint. My parents were staring, their faces a mixture of pride, confusion, and shock. Jacob finally found his voice, sputtering, That's not possible. You work out of a co-working space. You wear clothes from department stores. His eyes darted frantically between me and Daniel, then Mr. Davison. Daniel stepped closer to Jacob, speaking in a low, urgent tone. Jacob, I told you. I tried to tell you. Perhaps, I said, raising my voice slightly to regain control. This is a conversation best had somewhere more private. Daniel, would you mind looking after your guests for a moment? It was a directive, not a question. Daniel nodded, looking relieved to have a task. I turned and walked towards a side room, my parents following in stunned silence, Jacob trailing behind them, still looking utterly shell-shocked. Samantha, who had been watching the entire scene unfold from across the room, gave me a small, proud smile and a discreet thumbs up. The private room was opulent but felt stiflingly small with the four of us inside. As soon as the door closed, the questions erupted. Scarlett. How? Since when? Solaritech? But you said you were struggling. My mother Eleanor rushed forward, her voice trembling, a mix of confusion and hurt on her face. Struggling with what, Mom? I asked gently, but my tone was firm. Your job. Your career. We worried about you constantly. My father Richard added, his usual composed demeanor completely shattered. Jacob said you were practically unemployed. Jacob finally spoke, his voice hoarse. Yeah. You told us you were just doing freelance coding. You lived in that tiny apartment. I sat down deliberately, taking a moment to compose myself, gathering the threads of years of hidden truth. I was freelancing initially. That's how I funded the very first prototype of Solaritech's core technology, I explained calmly. The tiny apartment was deliberate. Low overhead. Every penny went back into the company. I lived frugally, maintained a low profile. It was a strategic choice. Strategic. Jacob scoffed, though without his earlier confidence. Living like a student while you were, what? A millionaire. A billionaire now, based on the latest valuation. I corrected him quietly. The Series C round pushed us past that milestone. My mother sank into a chair, looking faint. My father just stared, his mouth slightly agape. But why hide it? Eleanor whispered, her eyes pleading. Why let us worry? Why let us think you were barely getting by? I looked at each of them, years of suppressed feelings finally coming to the surface. Why? I repeated softly. Do you remember, Mom, how you always compared me to Jacob? Why can't you be more like your brother, Scarlett? Stable. Sensible. Do you remember, Dad, the lectures about getting a real job after I graduated, even when I tried to explain my ideas? I turned to Jacob. And you, Jacob? Do you remember every single time you mocked my little projects? Called them hobbies? Bragged about your promotions while pitying my lack of a conventional career path? Every family dinner, every holiday, every phone call was a reminder that in your eyes, I was a failure because I didn't follow your path. Jacob shifted uncomfortably, avoiding my gaze. I built Solaritech in secret because I needed to prove to myself I could do it purely on merit. I continued, my voice gaining strength. Without family connections, without pressure, without your constant judgment or pity. I needed to know that any success I achieved was mine alone, not because of who I was related to. We would have supported you. Richard protested weakly. Would you? I challenged gently. Or would you have tried to steer me, control things, ask for favors? Like when you asked Jacob to pull strings for Cousin Mark's job interview. Like when Aunt Carol constantly asks if you can get a good rate on legal work through Jacob's firm. They had no answer. The silence was heavy with unspoken truths. I let you believe what you wanted to believe, I said, looking directly at Jacob. Because it was easier than trying to earn your respect when you'd already decided I wasn't worth it unless I fit your mold. Jacob finally looked up, his face etched with something that might have been shame. I didn't know, he stammered. No, I agreed. You didn't. You saw what you expected to see. A knock on the door interrupted us. It was Daniel, looking hesitant. Everything okay? Mr. Davison and some others were asking. They seemed quite impressed, Scarlett. He managed a small smile. I stood up. It's all right, Daniel. We were just catching up. We should rejoin the party. I paused at the door, looking back at my stunned family. Oh, and Jacob, I added, a small wry smile touching my lips. That dress Aunt Carol subtly insulted earlier? And these shoes? They cost more than your annual salary. Just for context. The rest of the evening was a blur of stunned faces, whispered conversations, and awkward interactions. The news spread like wildfire. People who had politely ignored me earlier now flocked to my side, offering effusive congratulations and trying to network. Mr. Davison approached later, expressing genuine admiration and asking intelligent questions about Solara Tech's future plans. He invited me to speak at an upcoming industry event. Jacob hovered on the periphery, looking utterly out of place. Daniel was gracious, navigating the sudden shift in dynamics with quiet support for both Jacob and me. My parents were overwhelmed, fielding questions and trying to reconcile the daughter they thought they knew with the reality. Later, as the party was winding down, Jacob finally approached me, Daniel by his side. He looked exhausted and thoroughly humbled. "Scarlett," he started, his voice barely audible over the lingering chatter. I don't even know what to say. How about, "I'm sorry"? I suggested quietly. He flinched, then nodded slowly. "I'm sorry, Scarlett. For everything. For what I said tonight. For all the years. I was an idiot. A complete, arrogant idiot." Daniel put a hand on Jacob's shoulder. "He means it, Scarlett." He's been pale and speechless for hours. I looked at Jacob, seeing past the arrogance for the first time in a long time, seeing the younger brother who used to look up to me before insecurity twisted things. "Yes," I said softly. "You were. But thank you for the apology, Jacob. It's a start." "Why now?" Jacob asked, looking genuinely confused. "Why let Daniel say something tonight? After all these years of hiding?" I took a moment, thinking. "Partly because I'm tired of hiding," I admitted. "Partly because Daniel, bless his heart, didn't have your years of practice in maintaining the facade." I smiled slightly. "And partly because I think we all needed a jolt. Sometimes, the truth needs a dramatic entrance to cut through years of ingrained perception." He nodded slowly, processing. "It cut through, all right." The weeks that followed were interesting. The story, predictably, leaked to the financial press. "Secret tech billionaire revealed at brother's engagement party," read one headline. My face, often a candid, slightly startled shot taken by a guest, appeared in business sections. My carefully maintained anonymity was gone. My phone blew up. Distant relatives I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly remembered our shared history and pitched me dubious business ideas. Old high school classmates messaged, asking for investment opportunities. Aunt Carol called, no longer pitying, but asking if I could help her nephew get his app off the ground. I politely but firmly declined most requests, setting clear boundaries. The dynamic with my immediate family shifted awkwardly. My father, Richard, after the initial shock wore off, swung to the other extreme, bursting with pride, wanting to tell everyone he met about my daughter, the CO. He even tried to subtly leverage my name in his own business dealings, which I had to shut down gently but firmly. "Dad," I told him over lunch, "I built this without relying on the family name, and I intend to keep it that way. Your firm succeeds on its own merits." He looked crestfallen but seemed to understand. My mother Eleanor's reaction was more emotional. She came to my office one afternoon, past layers of security, and just stood by the window, looking out at the view I saw every day. "All this time," she murmured, tears welling up. "We thought you were struggling. We worried. Do you know how many nights I stayed awake wondering if you were okay?" "Mom, I was more than okay," I said, going to her. "I was building this. But you let us worry," she cried softly. "Was proving your point worth causing us that pain?" That hit hard. I had been so focused on the external battle, the need to prove myself independently, that I hadn't fully considered the emotional cost to the people who did, in their own misguided way, love me. "No," I said honestly. "No, it wasn't. I'm sorry, Mom. Not for the path I chose, but for the pain the secrecy caused you. That was never my intention." She looked at me for a long moment, then finally, mercifully nodded. I suppose after how we pushed you, how we compared you to Jacob, you felt you had to. Just promise me Promise me you won't hide like that again. Let us in. I promise, I said and meant it. Jacob and I navigated our new reality tentatively. The awkwardness lingered. His initial shame slowly morphed into a grudging respect, then something that almost resembled curiosity. He started asking about Solara Tech, not in a mocking way, but with genuine questions about the market, the technology. We had dinner a few weeks after the party, just the two of us. It was still a little stiff, but different. He apologized again, more fully this time, acknowledging his own insecurities that drove his behavior. I was so focused on feeling successful relative to you, he admitted, stirring his drink. I didn't even stop to think what real success looked like outside my little box. I'm genuinely proud of you, Scarlett. Even though I feel like a complete ass. You were an ass, Jacob. I agreed lightly, a ghost of a smile on my face. But we're family. We'll figure it out. Daniel proved to be a steady, positive influence. He was genuinely happy for my success and clearly loved Jacob. He became a bridge between us, helping to smooth over rough edges. Months later, Jacob and Daniel's wedding wasn't the tense spectacle the engagement party had been. It was a celebration. The topic of Solara Tech came up, but it was shared pride, not a weapon. My family and I were still navigating the new dynamic. There were still moments of awkwardness, of having to remind them of my boundaries, but the foundation was different. It was built on truth, not pretense. My parents were learning about my world. Jacob was learning to respect my path. Standing on my balcony one evening, looking out at the glittering city, I thought about the journey. The years of secrecy, the calculated risks, the deliberate facade, the dramatic reveal. Was it worth it? The pain, the misunderstandings, the isolation? Looking at where we were now, a family tentatively rebuilding, communicating more honestly than ever before, I thought maybe the hardest lessons, the most painful revelations, were necessary to clear the way for something real. Success wasn't just the number on the balance sheet. It was the ability to finally be myself, fully seen, fully accepted, even with all the messy history. I picked up my phone and texted Jacob. Dinner next week? My treat. His reply came back almost instantly. Only if you promise not to wear anything that costs more than my car. I smiled. Some things had changed completely. Others, wonderfully, had only changed their form. We were finally, truly in on the same joke.